So here I wrote down engine oil, all the mileage, every mileage I changed my engine oil, every single time, 53,000, 55, 59, 61, 63, 66, 69, 73, gearbox oil, bevel and drive shaft, air filter, oil filter, cables, plugs, brake shoes, rocker arms, valve bushes, battery, points, fork oil. So, you know, and I was really, again, slightly obsessional about looking after my bike because I needed her. She needed to get me home. I can't say I sort of at the time thought that motorbikes were going to become a kind of important part of my life. It was simply cheap, easy, efficient transport around London. So then I bought my BMW 60/6. But I think it was that bike that kind of made me realise the travelling potential of a motorbike. You know, you could go places on this. In the summer of '81, I flew out to Los Angeles and I bought a BMW 750, really old one, and rode it from the west coast to the east coast. So it was sort of gradually building up my confidence. Yeah, it's good. It's nice. It's nice and hot. Each trip I did, it just got slightly further afield, slightly longer. And I suppose it was after I'd ridden across America in 1981. I was probably riding in the deserts of Arizona or something. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if you could ride your motorbike around the world? I mean, it was just this kind of crazy thought that came into my head that I never imagined I would ever do. And I didn't even know then whether it was possible to do. You know, the world, obviously, before internet, before social media, so the world seemed a much, much larger place. It was very difficult to find out about countries, travelling, or anything about countries at all. I mean, I was only 23 years old, so I was pretty naive. I think in a way that kind of helped, because I think if you overthink things too much, then you can put yourself off and make yourself frightened of things you don't have to be frightened of. And I didn't think about doing the whole trip. It was very much one step at a time. After I left America, I then travelled to New Zealand. I didn't expect to sort of like New Zealand as much as I did. I was only going to stay there like 2 weeks, but it was so unspoiled and so beautiful. So I spent, I think, nearly two or 3 months there. And then I got to Sydney, and Australia was, again, that was a slight surprise in other ways. I mean, working in Sydney was quite good fun, actually. And then the outback, I expected to be really easy, and it was really challenging, mentally and physically challenging. You know, the outback is not a very forgiving place. You know, it's either really hot or really cold, or floods, or terrible roads. And also I was travelling like 400 or 500 miles a day, and it's hundreds of miles of nothing in the outback. So then I had these other challenges in the fact that I was on my own a lot. I had a lot of kind of space in my helmet where I was just hours, 6-7 hours a day on my own, didn't talk to anybody, didn't really meet anybody.
Australia was where you had your first major accident.
And Australia was my first accident when I cartwheeled, yeah. I cartwheeled the bike. Fortunately, I had met up with this other motorcyclist, or this other motorbike, being ridden by this English guy and this Kiwi, and they were riding behind me. Had they not been there, I probably wouldn't be here now. You know, I was really lucky that I had literally just met them the day before. And I think it was times like that that it was probably the most difficult, trying to kind of find the strength to carry on. You know, when you're beaten and you're bruised and your bike's a mess, and you know, the temptation to just say, oh, I can't, I'm just going to give up. You know, it is there, and you really have to just find the strength to and it's the same thing. You just sort of look at your bike and you just look at it and you say, oh my God, there's that, the forks, the seals, and you just see all this sort of, but then if you think, well, you know, again, it's just tackling it one problem at a time. You know, you fix the handlebars and then you fix the cables and then, oh, that's all right. And then you do this and then you do that. And then after 3 or 4 days, your bike's done. Malaysian money, Turkey, Malaysian, Pakistan. Obviously, I kept these for a reason. There's probably a 1 rupee Indian note or something. I know. So I used to carry that with me. That was my little personal stuff I used to carry in my jacket. I used to keep all my tickets. Thank God I did. I mean, if I hadn't all this, there's no way I could have ever written my book. I mean, it was a year just to put all this in order. Yeah, but no, it was a long process, just kind of going through all this, because of course it was all just jumbled up in a big box. And this was my route that I did, and that's all I had to find my way around in India. Being a woman on your own in India 40 years ago was not easy. It really wasn't. I was riding a motorbike that, you know, they'd never seen before, and I just got followed by, you know, hundreds of people all day. So that was mentally quite challenging. And, you know, you didn't really see other women on the streets. I did attract a huge amount of attention in India. Pakistan was challenging, and then when I travelled through Iran, that was at war with Iraq, so that was, and by that stage I'd been on the road for 2 years. I was ill, I was tired, I had hepatitis, I had dysentery, I'd lost about 3 stone in weight because I was so ill. By the time I got to Iran, I was ready to get home. And Iran was the big unknown on my whole trip, and that was the place I was most worried about throughout the whole journey, Iran, because you couldn't find out anything about the country. Tourists didn't go there, you couldn't find out anything about what went on in the country. It was a completely closed country, and it was at war with its neighbouring country, which obviously was not going to be particularly helpful. So really, after I got through Iran and I got into Turkey, as far as I was concerned, I was home. In Iran, I don't think I had a map of Iran. I think I just kind of winged it. So right, this is interesting. So I met this Dutch guy, and we arranged to meet up like 3 months later. And he was the only other overland traveller I met throughout the whole, like, 2.5 years on the road, which really, it says a lot to how different it was then to the way it is now. Anyway, so I've written here, Robert Albrets, 28th, 29th, Jaipur, 12 o'clock GPO. So I was going to meet Robert on the 28th, 29th in Jaipur at 12 o'clock at the General Post Office. I've only just seen that. That is bizarre. So that's how we used to communicate.
Wow, that's amazing.
We used to, these were revolutionary in those days. So we used to record and send tapes back and forth to each other. I used to just sort of talk into the machine. At the end of a day or at the end of 2 days, I would just kind of go, well, I don't hear, I don't know. And this was incredibly useful when I was writing my book. When I got back from my trip, I never listened to any of these. So I hadn't listened to myself in 35 years. I never listened. I mean, I just recorded these tapes in India or whatever, sent them home, and that was it. I mean, I'm not going to come home and listen to myself wittering on about India, am I? So I never listened to them. And it was only when I was writing my book that I got these tapes out. And then I found myself listening to myself, a 23-year-old, 24-year-old Elspeth, in the outback in Australia, and I've just had my accident, or my bike's just caught fire, or whatever. And it was just bizarre. It was really strange. It was like another person, actually.
To the biking club or group It's now December the 2nd in 1984, and I am in Bali, in Bali, and I arrived on Friday, sort of in the centre of the island, which is a lot nicer. Indonesians are fairly nice and friendly here. And also, I need a new visor for my helmet. I want a Bell, a genuine Bell visor. Now the helmet I've got is a Bell Star 2. As you know now, I came off my bike, so I kind of scratched the visor off a bit. And I'll sign off for now, because I think, are we going now?
I suppose I'd been aiming for this goal for so many years, dragging my way through pretty difficult, challenging times, to get to my goal, the light at the end of the tunnel. And somehow when I got there, I discovered that actually nobody really was that interested. Nobody cared, And it seemed kind of mad because I'd done it for myself anyway. And I think then, because there wasn't the internet, you couldn't connect with like-minded people or people who had had similar experiences. And because I'd spent, the last over 2 years on the road, living this incredibly intense. Every day you had to get out there and survive, and it was a real challenge every day just to not get killed on the roads in some countries. And so when you're used to living with that intensity all the time, to suddenly come home and it's all just it's all just gone, and everything's easy, and I was just totally lost. I was completely lost. That whole feeling of being totally and utterly alone out in the world, you can't get that anymore. It really puts a whole different mindset into travelling. You only have yourself to fall back on. You have no phone, you have no, I've broken down. Nothing. Everything in life is a balance, and you have to choose. You have to choose what you want, what sacrifices you're prepared to make for it, or if you are or not. And it's there's no right or wrong to it. It's just how much you want to achieve that particular goal.